Hi. All right. I think we're actually up and running. It's so great to see you all here. Thank you so much for coming and spending time with me today. And I'm so excited that people are downloading the handout and signing up for the class. Yeah, it's you don't need to be an astrologer to do this kind of work. So I this length of time of how long this presentation is, I'm not quite sure. It has been 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30. So we might have time at the end, we might not. And if we don't, then you'll get my email at the end and you can email me any questions that you have about what we're going to talk about today. Um, I'm not going to always be able to see the chat because I'm going to have to move the screen to the other side. And so make sure, let me know that you can still see the screen the way it's supposed to be. Maybe some thumbs up would be cool. And I'm just going to kick it up. Excellent. That's great. All right. So, my name is Tracy Quinlan, and I would consider myself a contemporary astrologer. I honor some traditional Hellenistic techniques and the traditional rulerships of the planets in astrology. But I definitely approach things from a more psychological or holistic modern approach. I'm also a writer. I've been writing the horoscopes for the Llewellyn astrological calendar now since 2019. And I'm a teacher of acutonics, sound healing, and a practitioner, and now an author, thanks to this incredible opportunity that Llewellyn has given me. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Llewellyn. And this event has just been fantastic so far. Yeah. So, what does Venus really have to do with love? Because it's been delegated to kind of a fluffy definition, especially in social media and things like that. Best calendar, it really is. So this all came about over a very long period in having several conversations and seeing that when it comes to what people want, they don't always know, or people repeating relationship patterns, or even in natal charts, seeing how powerful Venus is in times when it takes me by surprise because I work a lot on a chart before I do a session, and there'll be strong other energy, and yet that the needs of Venus win. Just recently, somebody on social media had posted, it was actually a video of all the billionaires in the world and their sun signs, and the three largest categories of wealthy people all had a sun sign that was in some way ruled by Venus. So that was a really interesting pattern. Anyway, so let's get on with it. So these are the topics that Venus has been boxed into, romance, beauty, pleasure, love, sometimes self-care, and the stereotypical self-care. But we need to look deeper. Sometimes we run into problems because Venus is feminine, but really all that means is, if we're trying to get away from anything that's the word's escaping me. So yin, feminine energy in astrology is something that draws stuff to it. So if you're more comfortable with thinking about it in terms of yin energy, Venus is the most yin, along with the moon. And yin energy brings things towards it. It's a magnet, right? And if we try to approach Venus from these stereotypical places, well, romance is something that's learned, and it's something that is prescribed. Beauty is marketed to us, and it's changing depending on fashion. And then pleasure is policed, and so we often have to do a lot of untangling to even figure out what that means to us. So what happens if we think of Venus from a deeper perspective? So, really, at the heart of it, the question that Venus is answering for us, or is constantly building on for us, is what do we want? And that's not just in relationships, that's in our life in general. And so if we're at a stage where we feel like we should be really clear on what we want, and yet we're either not getting what we want, or it's when we really sit with it, we can't answer that fully. There's a few different ways. Like if you think of the sky astronomically, the first thing we learn is the moon in our chart. It's our emotions. And so if we're having unresolved emotional stuff, trauma responses, things that come up to block our happiness, then maybe there's some moon stuff we need to work through before we can get to answer the Venus question. And then next will be the sun. Who are we? We can't understand that, or we can't put our finger on that. That needs to be dealt with before we can move into the Venus questions. And then the Mercury is communicates with the sun and brings those messages to earth, but it's about our mental processes. So if there's some negative loops in terms of getting in the way of happiness and getting what we want out of life, then maybe there's some Mercury work that needs to be done. But it's actually then those three planets and what they create within us that dictate what Venus is going to attract. And then Venus is going to communicate to Mars and say, this is what this person wants. So now go get it. So these are some of the deeper themes. Value is a very big Venus word. And that comes down to our values in every area of our life, including our self worth, our self value, our self love. And so until those things are, we work on those things, what we want is going to grow as we do that work and we come to ourselves from a loving place. Venus also rules any kind of social connection, not just romance and love. And so Venus is in our chart, and how it's talking to things in our chart is going to dictate how we connect to people, how we attract people into our lives, and what types of connections we really are interested in. So, originally when I started writing this book and create with the concept with the book that I have coming out with Llewellyn, it's about using your chart and where to go look for love. But I realized in the thought process of putting it together that unless the what you want and the Venus stuff was sorted out, and then the how you go out and get it, the Mars piece was worked out, the next part of the book wasn't really all that relevant. So that's I chose to start the book with some Venus work. And so, what we want sits at the center, pretty much everything that we do, and how everything we attract into our lives, Venus is dictating that. And if we can't honor what we really, really want, we can't create the life that fits, us, our chart, and the story that is unfolding there. And an unhappy Venus can disrupt, our habits, our healthy habits in our life, our relationships, and our decision making, really. So there are conditions that we can find in a birth chart that can make understanding or even accessing what Venus has to say challenging. So this typically leads to delays in finding the perfect situation, and the connections that we want to have in the life that we want to live, and based on who we are. So, and there can be more difficult Venus challenges, like say pleasure seeking that interrupts our life. Then that becomes something that somebody in a different profession would deal with. It's more leaning towards illness side of things. But the simpler ideas that we want to look at, that where Venus might struggle in our birth chart, is if it's in a sign that it doesn't naturally do Venus things in. It's really difficult in astrology, the good bad part of things, because there really isn't good or bad. That's things that we ascribe, that we decide we are we've been told, and there's a lot of unpacking that needs to happen there. So the true Venus work is going to be easier for Venus in signs that naturally Venus likes to be in. Challenging aspects to Venus can make there will likely be life lessons that need to be navigated before understanding the Venus message can happen. Or if Venus is having a really strong conversation with either Saturn or Mars, again, there are some challenges that need to be navigated before getting to the heart of the Venus story can happen. Or if there's trauma or social programming that needs to be untangled, that also has to be addressed before you can really hear what Venus is trying to tell you. So, we're going to talk about the elements, Venus in the elements, and some of the things that that says. And the next thing that we're going to talk about after that is some ways to work with Venus, and all of that is what I added into the handout, and we'll put that in the chat again if anybody wants it. And so you can get all the key points off of the slides. So there's 4 elements in modern Western astrology, and Venus will express differently depending on the element that it's in when you're born. In some elements, Venus is more comfortable in, and it can be more Venusian. And the element is going to shape how we connect to other people, what makes us feel good, and what we're attracted to and what we attract. So the first element we're going to look at is fire. And we always start with fire just because Aries is the first sign. So we're looking at Venus in Aries, or Venus in Leo, or Venus in Sagittarius. So fire is the element of passion. So a Venus in fire, there's going to be a passionate side to this person. Venus in a fire sign wants its presence felt. It wants to be seen and experienced. It wants to come in and heat things up or be heated up. There's a creativity to fire. So Venus in fire tends to be attracted to creativity or be quite creative themselves. And Venus in fire loves to be inspired. So it's going to be attracted to the people who have a lot of what their idea of charisma is and confidence. And fire always needs some movement. So Venus in a fire sign is going to get bored if these things aren't met. And then we have Venus in Earth. Well, Venus rules Taurus. So we know that Venus in Earth is going to feel more comfortable to be Venus. There's a practicality to Venus in an Earth sign. Venus in Earth wants something that's grounded, that's stable in their idea of what stable looks like. It's the most literally sensual because sensuality is part of the Venus thing. And so in Earth, Venus really wants all of its senses to be engaged. And all of no, it's gone. Venus in Earth tends to be attracted to like the love language of service and acts of kindness, that kind of thing. There are plenty of what's interesting is Venus in Virgo, a lot of fashion designers, especially fashion designers who love detail, that's a very trademarked Venus in Virgo thing. And also textiles and textures, that it likes that sensuality of Venus in Earth. So this is Venus in Air is the most flirtatious of the Venuses, because Venus in Air loves to connect intellectually, loves witty banter, loves a good sense of humor, sharing ideas, lively conversation. Expression through writing is going to be an air thing, especially in Gemini. And Venus in Air has the most likelihood to get bored if the things that it wants aren't being stimulated, more so than fire. And this is the most charming of the Venuses. It's also Venus in Air in every area of life. The connections that Venus in Air makes needs some kind of friendship, even if it's a romantic relationship. And relationships might actually start out of friendship with a Venus in Air person. And then finally, we have Venus in water. So Venus in water operates on a more energetic or even cellular level. And so Venus in water is most likely to be looking for that soul connection or the soulmate idea. And Venus in water is going to find meaning in the unspoken things. It's going to put a lot more value, Venus word, on the actions and the feelings and the vibes and the energy than it's ever going to put on the words that come out of your mouth. That's not important, as important to a Venus in water. There could be other air in the chart that changes that, but if we're just talking about Venus, Venus in water needs a deep emotional connection. And especially, if we get to like the Cancer to the Scorpio, really needs a deep connection. And then Pisces tends to want to merge a little bit with the people that it's with and the connections that it makes. Oh yeah, so here are some of the things that are some of the more basic everyday life issues that can come up with Venus is having trouble. So, attraction to what doesn't nourish you can be a pattern. Struggling to name or pursue what you want can be a Venus thing, or repeating relationship patterns or connection patterns, even with friends, that leave you feeling disconnected, drained, or unfulfilled. If that continues to happen, then you might want to visit Venus and make a relationship with her and start uncovering what it is that you're missing from Venus in your birth chart. So, here are some questions that are worth asking yourself. If you can easily answer what you want out of life, the next step is knowing why you want it. Okay. So, the why in what you want is the key to all of it, right? It opens up opportunities because over time, what you want might change. And so, being able to then ascribe the why to something different is just makes life a lot easier. I hear we're out of sync. Well, that if you saw my chart, that's pretty normal. um, so knowing what things to add to your life makes it easier to identify other opportunities to attract that same thing into your life, but in the thing that you're trying to get out of it. So I'll use relationship as an example. So, lots of times people say, well, I want a relationship. Well, what is it in a relationship? Why do you want one? What are you going to get from a relationship? And often it's connection, support, intimacy. Well, you don't necessarily need to be in a committed relationship or romantic relationship to get those things. So to go find the why is more likely to get you to the what than the other way around, than looking for the what, trying to fulfill the why of what you're looking for in life. And again, I used relationship just because it's easy, but that's with anything, whether it's, the kind of work that you want to do, if it's the money monetization. I mean, Venus rules valuables are stuff. Venus is in charge of that. So, the things that you want in your life, why, and then try to facilitate the why instead of the what. So I'm a Martian girl. I like taking action, and so I love working with remediation, which is helping balance the planets in our chart. And all the planets have affiliations to stones, colors, foods, all these sorts of things. And I love magic and all of the rituals and that ceremony. I do love it, but there are more mundane and simple day-to-day things you can do to connect to the planets. And so this is some of the stuff that's also in the handout. And these are all things that are affiliated with Venus. And you can layer these things on top of each other. So, like with colors, every day of the week is ruled by a planet. And so I try every single day to wear a color or something associated with the planet just to connect. So these are just the stones are just some simple examples. Anything to do with unconditional love in crystals and stones. So rose quartz, pink tourmaline, the pink stones, those can all be Venus associated. Diamond, the association with diamond is more about the luxury and the actual value of a diamond. And if you want to work with diamonds to access any planet, just know it magnifies everything quite a bit. So handle with care. And then there's the green side of the stones that are going to be associated with Venus. So here I've listed malachite and jade, but there's a plethora of them. And really, when it comes to any of this sort of thing, if it's something that you affiliate with Venus, it's your intention that is creating the energy here. So, it's much more about what resonates for you than what I'm telling you or what anybody else tells you. With colors, green, we're talking earthy greens because of the affiliation with Taurus. Pink, again, I think that comes from the modern association to the heart chakra, which Venus rules. And so pinks, pastels, anything soft that feels calming can be associated with Venus. Foods, sweet is what Venus rules, and sugar is a Venus thing. Chocolate is a Venus thing. Actually, chocolate technically is Venus and Jupiter because Jupiter rules fat, and those two things are both in chocolate, which is why it's so indulgent. So sweet spices, things that you would add to baking. Think that way. Berries, apples, anything that is in on a plate that stimulates all the senses. It's beautiful to look at. It smells amazing. It tastes fantastic. That is, making yourself sitting down and making yourself a beautiful Venus meal. Great way to work with Venus. And then there's something called planetary charity. So what you do is you donate something of yourself, so time, object, money, whatever feels aligned for you and is a bit of a stretch. There needs to be a little bit of an effort in whatever you do for planetary charity. And then you choose something that you feel is affiliated with Venus. So women's groups, you can donate a haircut to somebody who can't afford or, needs it. And anything like that. I used to do as a hairstylist a million years ago, do haircuts. We raised money for kidney cancer. Well, kidneys are ruled by Venus, Libra technically, and the haircut. So that was an extremely Venusian thing, even though I didn't know it at the time. And then organizations that focus on self-care. So we have organizations that are helping the unhoused, and part of that process is they get to take a shower and get a haircut and feel good. That is a super Venusian way to donate your time or whatever it is to activate Venus and to connect to Venus in your chart. And then each of the planets is affiliated with a number. So Venus's number is 7 or 49. So the 9 is a full cycle. 9 times 7 is 49. So that's a very powerful Venus number. And then anything that's in multiples of 7. So you can, when you donate, use 7 in that number. You can do something 7 times. Whatever you need. Then there's essential oils and plants that are affiliated. So I have a Venus altar and I put roses on it when I think about it. I have an apple scented candle. So there's violets, red coral. So the really pretty florals are associated with Venus, as are the sweet fruits. Now, the frequency of the planets has been calculated and translated into sound. And so the sound for Venus is 221.23 hertz. And it's the musical note A. And so because the heart chakra is ruled by Venus, you can actually just sing an A and imagine your heart chakra opening up. And that can be really powerful because Venus also rules the throat and Taurus. So using your voice, again, you're layering these ideas to create a connection with Venus. Day of the week is Friday today. The metal, so if you want to do jewelry with the stones, copper is her metal, and Venus rules the heart chakra. So I've already explained this, what do you want is Venus, how do you get it is your Mars, and then where do you find what you want is going to be based on the houses, the rulerships of the houses, and the aspects between the planets that you're talking about. And so you guys have the handout, I think, and the free email course if you're interested. In the email course, it's 5 days. You get an email and you explore each of these layers plus some to unlock your Venus. If you go to consultthisguy.com, there's a free place to calculate your chart. There's lots of places online, but I made it easy by putting it on my website. And that's everything. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that was like half an hour. Does anybody have a quick question that I can answer? Oh, I lost it. Here we go. How does Venus affect desired change? Huh. I mean, Venus is affecting anything we desire. Venus is our desire. So if change is what you're desiring, then there's either been a shift in your Venus or there's been an aspect to Venus by transit. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that Venus affects desired change as much as it can get affected and therefore then has you desire change. Oh, thanks, Nancy. Email me and we'll deal with that for sure. How does the houses Venus can be affect things? Yeah. So go sign up for the email course and definitely the answers to that are in there for sure. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here. This has been so great. Your Sun Venus placement and chart together. Well, I mean, it depends on if they're aspecting each other. Um, the sun is about figuring out who you are, and it gets called, or it's said it's who we are, but often the sun is who we are becoming. So working on who you're becoming and then also what you want, those things together are how you would put them together. You're welcome, Daryl. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, you guys, this has been so great. Consultthesky.com is the website. Yeah. Yeah, the Venus never gets Nikita. She says, like the sun in Aries, Venus in Pisces. The Venus can only get 45 degrees away from the sun. So it's never very far from the sun, neither is Mercury. So to have Aries, Sun, Pisces, Venus, they're side by side. That makes sense. You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Does Venus also have an affinity for air signs since it's, yep, yes. It rules Libra, so it has a certain comfort in that the connection side of air for sure. Thanks, Evan, for asking that question. Does Venus also have an affinity with air signs since it rules Libra? Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. That's it for me today.